IWDUEU. Let's do it. I told you I got you once again. 25 years.
Welcome to Football Gameplan's XFL Gameday. I'm Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook, bringing you our preview of the 2020 inaugural season for the XFL. And we're going to start by previewing the teams, and today we'll kick off the show by talking about the DC Defenders. I like what the DC Defenders are building in our nation's capital. Head coach and general manager Pep Hamilton has put together a strong coaching staff and a really good roster. I think they have the best quarterback in the league in former Ohio State Buckeyes signal caller Cardale Jones. The 6'5", 250-pounder is coming off his best preseason last summer with the Los Angeles Chargers and gets the keys to an offense that has a ton of athletic playmakers on the perimeter, like wide receiver Malachi Dupree out of LSU and tight end Kari Lee out of Bowie State. Now there's a pretty good guard center guard combination right there in front of him in Dorian Johnson, John Toth, and also Rashard Cook. That group should also help pave the way for a stable of quick, shifty tailbacks in Jarrell Presley, who has a ton of speed, and Donnell Pumphrey, who is the all-time leading rusher in college football history. Now defensively, defensive coordinator Jeff Fitzgerald has a rangy group of linebackers, and Scooby Wright, AJ Tarpley, Jameer Thurman are some solid players, and I'm a big fan of Antoine Williams' game and also Keyshawn Freeman's game. Williams has the ability to get out and cover backs and tight ends. He's pretty good as a zone defender, and Freeman has the juice off the edge that should be able to find himself setting up shop in the opposing backfield very often in the defender's 3-4 defense. Also keep an eye out for defensive tackle Kenny Bigelow out of West Virginia. He's a young player from the 2019 NFL draft class that should be able to come into his own in DC. Safety Matt Elam gives the defenders a playmaker on the back end that should also strike fear in the hearts of receivers who decide to travel lightly over the middle of the field. Let's head to the great state of Texas, who have two XFL franchises, and we'll start in Dallas, where the Renegades get my early vote for being the most fun team to watch in the entire league. Firstly, they were able to get former Oklahoma Sooner legend Bob Stoops to come out and be their head coach and general manager, and he went ahead and put together a really good star-studded coaching staff with Hal Mumme, Jeff Jasinski, Marvin Sanders, and Jim Jeffcoat, just to name a few. Now, we sort of know what to expect on offense. It'll be a lot of passing, a lot of throwing the football all around the yard to guys like wide receivers Jeff Badette and Jazz Ferguson, the big, tall receiver out of Northwestern State, and tight ends Sean Price and Donald Parham out of Stetson, who stands 6'8", 245 pounds. Now, when they do decide to run the football, they have a home run hitting slasher in the backfield and Marquise Young out of UMass. Now, I spoke with him back at the XFL Showcase in New Jersey, and he was more than excited for this opportunity.
How's this whole journey been for you, and where you are right now as far as this whole process since January?
It's been a grind. Thought I was going to be in the NFL on the NFL roster. Had to take a different avenue to get to where I need to be, and I've just been grinding ever since. And just using this as an opportunity to get where I know I'm supposed to be. I think the explosiveness in my game, the patience, the toughness. I run with toughness. I'm fearless. I will protect the quarterback most importantly, and I can learn that playbook.
Now, on the defensive side of the ball, the Renegades will run a 3-4 defense, and I like some of the athleticism that they were able to acquire on that side of the ball. Winston Craig, the defensive lineman, had a very good preseason with the Philadelphia Eagles. Hau'olui Kakaha had some pass rushing chops with the New Orleans Saints, and free safety Deron Smith is a legit ball hawk who is coming off of a stellar year in the now defunct Alliance of American Football League. So I'm interested to see how reserve backers Trey Watson out of Maryland and Tegray Scales out of Indiana develop under Renegades defensive coordinator Chris Woods, who was recently the defensive coordinator for Texas State. We now go from Renegades in Dallas to the Roughnecks down there in Houston, Texas, where June Jones is the head coach and general manager of this franchise and has two well-respected NFL minds as his coordinators. Chris Miller was a longtime QB in the NFL and very successful under June Jones. He'll be the OC, while the great Ted Cottrell, who spent 28 years as an NFL defensive coach, will handle the defensive side of the ball. But when you talk June Jones, you got to talk offense, and he should have a pretty good one here in Houston. If Cardale Jones is my XFL QB1, then quarterback Phillip Walker out of Temple would be my XFL QB 1A. I've always enjoyed the efficiency in Walker's game, who is very similar to Tyrod Taylor and what he brings to the table. Now, in this spread offense, his ability to make it an 11-on-11 game should open things up for tremendous playmakers like wide receiver Cam Phillips out of Virginia Tech and running back Andre Williams from Boston College. Defensively, keep an eye out for outside linebacker Edmund Robinson out of Newberry College. He has the length and athleticism to shrink passing windows in coverage and gives Coach Cottrell a ton of versatility at the second level. Defensive lineman Kashard Lyons is another versatile defender who is capable of playing multiple spots up front in this 3-4 defense. And one of my favorite defenders is defensive back Dietrich Nichols from South Florida. He can play in the slot. He can either play safety, free safety, or strong safety as well. Once again, another versatile defender for Coach Cottrell to play chess with. We now head out west to take a look at the Los Angeles Wildcats. Head coach and general manager Winston Moss has quietly put together a team that should be stout on both sides of the line of scrimmage. Offensively speaking, tackles Storm Norton and Tyler Romer are tall, athletic people movers, while on the interior, I like the game of Dwayne Wallace, Nico Siragusa, and Khalil McKenzie. Offensive coordinator Norm Chow will definitely have the protection needed for quarterback Josh Johnson to do his thing back there in the pocket. On the defensive side, defensive coordinator Pepper Johnson has to like what he sees in Sean Oakman and Devin Taylor, two long, lengthy tackles that can extend and make plays. But he also has some squatty, quick guys on the interior like Roderick Henderson from Alabama State and Boogie Roberts from San Jose State, who was one of the standouts at the 2019 Tropical Bowl down in Daytona Beach, Florida. So it's not to say that the Wildcats don't have some talented playmakers out there on the perimeter or in the secondary. It's just saying that this team is built really well in the trenches and is built to win in year one. But you know what? Let's talk about some of those perimeter options. We already spoke about Josh Johnson at QB, but he has some really good options to throw the football to. Nelson Spruce at wide receiver. Jalen Green out of North Texas, one of my favorite receivers in last year's draft class. Tight end Brandon Barnes should be a significant target over the middle of the field. When you look in the secondary, Harlan Miller out of Southeastern Louisiana should be around the football a lot. He's a big-time ball hawk. And Aaron Springs out of Missouri has those quicks and instincts that you want to see on the back end. Now we'll take a quick commercial break and be back with more Football Game Plan's XFL Game Day here on the Game Plus Network.
Football Game Plan is brought to you in part by Ninth and Lux. Visit the website ninethandlux.com and check out the clothing gallery. Do You Music with featured artist IW in his latest album, Season 2. You can check that out on iTunes as well as doyoumusic.com. Nesby Phipps, art, life, entertainment. NesbyPhipps.com. Grind It Out Fitness. Visit the website grinditoutfitness.com and download the app.
Welcome back to XFL Game Day here on the Game Plus Network. We'll now head to New York, where the Guardians plan to protect MetLife Stadium this season. Head coach general manager Kevin Gilbride leads his team into battle with one of the more stacked tight end groups in the XFL. Jake Powell from Monmouth, Keenan Brown from Texas State, EJ Bibbs of Iowa State, and Jake Sutherland from Morehead State all have the ability to get open downfield. It gives this offense some versatility. What will give them a significant punch, though, is running back Darius Victor out of Towson, who will quickly become a fan favorite here in Gotham City or the Garden State. Defensively, the linebackers are rangy and athletic. Nick DeLuca out of North Dakota State and Ben Heaney out of Kansas are your classic run and chase backers that can also cover. DeLuca just seems to always find the football, and I'm also a big fan of cornerback Jamar Summers out of UConn, who had a strong season in the Alliance of American Football. Defensive tackle Joey Mabu out of Houston was another AAF player who put together some good tape last winter as he leads their defensive front. Former NFL tight end and longtime NFL coach Jonathan Hayes is the leader of the St. Louis Battlehawks, who figure to have one of the better defenses in the XFL just based off roster composition. There's not one weak spot on that depth chart on that side of the ball. I'm excited to see both defensive lineman Andrew Anker out of James Madison and linebacker Dexter McCoyle out of Tulsa hit the field. Now, McCoyle was a star in the CFL, playing all over the field. The former Golden Hurricane safety turned linebacker is a tremendous playmaker, and anytime your defense has Will Hill on it, big plays will be made. That's just science. Offensively speaking, I think wide receiver Alonzo Russell is in for a great year. He had his best preseason last year for the New York Giants, and we'll be looking to build on that in St. Louis.
Out in the Pacific Northwest, Jim Zorn is the head coach and general manager for the Seattle Dragons franchise, and they're another team in the XFL that have put together a very good offensive line. Cyril Richardson, Dylan Day, and Isaiah Battle are day one impact players that can help this offense go. What's also interesting is that the receiver position, where two guys, John Santiago and Keenan Reynolds, both handled the ball a lot in college, but at different positions. Santiago was a standout tailback for North Dakota, and Reynolds was a record-setting option QB for the Naval Academy. Running back Jaquan Gardner was the Maurice Jones-Drew of the Alliance of American Football and figures to be one of the leading rushers in the XFL. Now, defensively, Will Sutton, the former Arizona State Sun Devil, will lead this defense in what should be a very athletic front seven. And finally, we take a look at the Tampa Bay Vipers franchise led by head coach Mark Trestman, as he brings a ton of experience and knowledge on the offensive side of the ball, which is why I'm excited to see these guys hit the field this week against the New York Guardians. He has a pretty talented quarterback room with Aaron Murray, Quentin Flowers, Taylor Cornelius, and Chase Litton. What also looks to be deep and talented is his receiving core led by Reese Horn out of University of Indianapolis, who looked uncoverable, if that's even a word, for the Memphis Express last winter in the Alliance of American Football. Defensively, I like the game of Anthola Kelly out of Fresno State. He was one of the top corners in last year's NFL draft class, who graded out pretty high for me because of his ability to take the ball away. I think he's going to be a very good matchup defender for the Vipers. Now let's toss it over to David Hashagen to get you up to speed on some of the new and unique rules of the XFL.
With the second incarnation of the XFL, there are new teams and more players with an even higher talent level than ever before. But with the promise of less downtime, more action, and the hope of games finishing in under 3 hours, the XFL is bringing some new rules to the field in 2020. So we at Football Gameplan thought it would be as good a time as ever to explain some of these new rules to you so that you are in the loop to check out an XFL game either live or on television. First, some really quick general notes before we go in depth. Only 1 foot down for a catch. College rules, a whole lot simpler. No coaches' challenges. All reviews will come from a designated official on site in the booth. Only 2 timeouts per half, down from 3, a 10-minute halftime, and a 25-second play clock on all plays. That leads to a faster game and a more thrilling contest. Now let's go to some of the bigger rule changes. First, the days of the extra point are over. Teams must run an offensive play worth different point values following a touchdown. Point after plays from the 2-yard line will be worth 1 point. Plays from the 5-yard line will be worth 2, and plays from the 10-yard line will be worth 3 points. And if there's a score by the defense on a point after play, the defensive team will earn 1, 2, or 3 points based on where the play started. More points, more excitement. Sticking with kicking and punting comes the next set of rules. On kickoffs, both teams will line up on the returning team's side of the field. Kicking team on the 35, the return team on the 30. And neither team's gunners can move until the ball is caught. Kicks that go out of bounds or fall short of the 20-yard line will result in a penalty and be placed at the 45-yard line. Kickoffs that land in the end zone will be placed at the 35, and if a kick lands inbounds then rolls into the end zone and is downed, the ball will be placed on the 15-yard line. On punts, players cannot release downfield until the ball is kicked. Punts that go out of bounds or into the end zone at any point will result in a major touchback and be placed at the 35-yard line. These rules encourage the excitement of kick returns, but with a higher emphasis on player safety. Next, we go to one of the biggest changes on the offensive side of the ball, which is the double forward pass. While this might sound like a play you drew up with your buddies in the backyard or a reference to an infamous blown call, the double forward pass is a real thing that the XFL hopes will open up the offensive playbook for more excitement. In reality, it's quite simple. If a forward pass goes beyond the line of scrimmage, the ball can't be thrown forward again, same as the NFL. However, if a forward pass is completed behind the line of scrimmage, the receiver can throw another forward pass as long as they do not run past the line of scrimmage. Only 2 forward passes are allowed on any one play. And last but not least, let's get into overtime. Now, for myself and most football fans, the NFL overtime rules seem outdated, archaic, and some would even say unfair. Well, in the XFL, the league has gone with a hybrid between a college football overtime and an NHL or soccer penalty shootout. In overtime, there will be 5 rounds where each team will alternate running one play to try and score from the 5-yard line. If the team scores, they receive 2 points. The team with the most points at the end of 5 rounds will win, unless the team cannot catch up in the remaining rounds, in which case the game is over. If the score is tied after 5 rounds, they will go into a sudden death until one team has more points at the end of a round. Teams are also only allowed 1 penalty on defense in the entirety of overtime. If there's a penalty, the try will be retried from the 1. Any subsequent defensive fouls will result in the play automatically counting and 2 points being awarded to the offensive team. An offensive pre-snap penalty will result in a normal penalty and play will be reattempted. A turnover or a post-snap offensive penalty results in the play being called dead and no points being awarded. Sounds like a whole lot more fun to me. If you want even more on the rule changes imposed by the XFL along with their rationale and how they differ from the NFL and college rules, as well as some videos showing what the plays will look like, go to xfl.com and click on Rules for a full description of what you can expect on the field. When we come back, Emery will break down the Week 1 matchups in the inaugural XFL season right here on the Game Plus Network. Stay with us.
Football Game Plan is brought to you in part by Financial Coaching LLC, Investment, Retirement, Security. Stewardship Credit. Financial growth is in your hands. Stewardshipcredit.com. Adrienne Marie Photo, photographer, writer, management. AdrienneMariePhotography.com. Lock Multimedia. Be sure to order your copy of the Go-Go Offense by Coach Brennan Marion on footballgameplan.com/Go-Go Offense. Coach Marion goes through the ins and outs of his explosive offense, one that's tearing up the college football field and putting a lot of points on the scoreboard. Again, you can order your copy at footballgameplan.com/Go-Go Offense.
Well, the game of football has taught me so many things, man. Now, think about the huddle we have right now, right? I tell people this all the time. There's a reason why they call it a huddle. You know, people have been huddling all their lives, trying to find ways to enhance each other's lives. The great teams do that all the time. The great teams do that. The better the huddle, the better the team. And so it's simple, man, how if you huddle for all the right reasons, we wouldn't have Ferguson. We wouldn't have some of the challenges that we have in our society. But as we all know, there's always a moment when somebody doesn't belong in the huddle. And yet we have to continue to move on. We got to continue to play. So the game of life, man, is always starting with a huddle. And for me, I'm lucky enough to know that, you know, by the graces of God, man, it's been a nice huddle. It's been a nice huddle. And if I just keep making sure that he's in front of me, I'm gonna be all right.
What's up, NFL fans? I'm Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook, and don't forget to check out and purchase your copy of our latest football game plan book, Stiff Arming Football Myths. We have these available in both PDF and paperback form.
I love football. I cannot get enough of football. I watch it on every level.
The emotional release. You know, whether it's an exciting play that gets you all jacked up and juiced, or whether it's the fact that you're able to pour everything you have. Whatever frustration you had that week, you can put into that first kickoff coverage, that first block that you have, whatever it might be.
And I couldn't think of anything better to do to fill that void that you have as a football player than to get into coaching.
You get a chance to release a lot of emotion that you otherwise have no place to release. There's nothing else like that.
Again, the relationships you build and the people you're around and watching the guys compete, not just on the football field, but in life after they get done playing. It's just an amazing game.
Let's get into some Week 1 XFL previews, and we'll begin in our nation's capital with the Defenders and the Dragons. Now, this game has a ton of intrigue because of the pieces at play. Seattle's head coach Jim Zorn is a guy who loves the element of surprise and a ton of trickeration, so that leads me to believe that we'll see a few double passes in this ball game from wide receiver Keenan Reynolds, amongst others. You know, he was a former option quarterback at Navy. Now, the Defenders' defense will have to stay assignment sound, otherwise they'll find themselves getting gashed by the big play deep down the field. Ultimately, I do think guys like Matt Elam and linebacker Antoine Williams should be able to keep DC from taking the cheese. While on offense, I think the defenders' ground game with Jarrell Presley and also Donnell Pumphrey will be the reason why they get the win against the Dragons in the XFL opener. Next up, we have Tampa Bay traveling to New York to take on the Guardians, and this is going to be an intriguing matchup, one, because of what we're going to see out there on the field, but two, because of the weather implications that we may encounter while out here at MetLife Stadium. It may be a rainy day, or it may rain just before kickoff, so the conditions could be a little slick, which means the passing game could suffer as a result. So take that away. You look at who can run the football really well. We already talked about how well New York is built along both sides of the line of scrimmage. They will look to control the line of scrimmage in this ball game. However, when you look at Tampa Bay and what they bring to the table, you have Aaron Murray throwing the football, but be on the lookout again for the double pass. This is going to be a big implementation in the XFL when you have a guy like Quinn Flowers that can also not only run the football but also throw it downfield with accuracy. So we'll see how it plays out. I'm not as sold on the Guardians QB situation, so I think they'll have to lean more on their ground game with Darius Victor and company running the football. With the running game being prevalent in this New York Guardians offense, I do think this game will be very close, but I like Tampa Bay to come in and steal a win from the Guardians. In what may be the most entertaining game of the XFL opener, Los Angeles travels to Houston to take on the Roughnecks. And the reason why I like this ball game as a close matchup is because of the point of attack play. We talked about the offensive line and defensive line of Los Angeles, but they may be without Josh Johnson under center, who's dealing with a thigh bruise right now. But Chad Canoff, the backup QB out of Princeton, can do a great job in filling in for Johnson if he can't go. But again, this game will be won along the line of scrimmage. You look at what Houston brings to the table. I do love the stability that a guy like Philip Walker brings to the table at quarterback. And I think his dual threat capabilities, along with Cam Phillips, along with that defensive front seven that the Houston Roughnecks bring to the table, they may win the close one here against Los Angeles. Again, this will be the best game of the weekend. And finally, the St. Louis Battlehawks travel to Dallas to take on the Renegades. And the Renegades are a little bit banged up at QB right now. Their starting quarterback, Landry Jones, may not play in week one. Their backup quarterback, and Eric Dungy, is also dealing with an injury, so we may see Philip Nelson at QB. With all of those questions at QB, they may have to lean on their ground game, and we talked about the strength of this St. Louis Battlehawks team. Point of attack play has been a running theme throughout this show. Defensively, I think they're where they need to be in order to hit the ground running and keep this a close game, because we know Dallas wants to air this football out and go out there in 4 or 5 wide and really push the pace and the tempo, but they can't do that if they're down to their backup QB, their third string quarterback. So I would envision a defensive slugfest here, which St. Louis will win this ball game and start their season off 1-0.
So that's it for this edition of XFL Game Day. I'm Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook. Be sure to follow me on all of my social media accounts. And don't forget to check out and subscribe on iTunes to Football Game Plan Podcast, where you can find our XFL Game Day podcast. And be sure to leave us a 5-star rating.
IWDUEU. Let's do it. Yeah. I told you I got you once again. 25 years.